Hello everyone. Welcome, welcome. Let's see, we'll wait a second till we know, so we've got this going. Hi everybody. Hello, hello. Hello. Let's see, I am setting up a second screen here so I can, there we go, so I can see myself. How is everybody? How is everybody doing? Hello, hello. Okay, I gotta cover myself because it's distracting to look at my face while I'm doing this. And see, I added heart eyes. I don't know how I did that. Guys, it's gonna be like this for the full half hour. All right, well, as people are starting to stream in here, pun very much intended, I am going to share a little bit of info about me and about what we're going to be doing here today. Okay, so my name, if you don't know me, my name is Kimberly Shrack, and I am the owner of Hoopla Letters, formerly Manioc Calligraphy. So you may have taken one of my classes in Indy. Oh, it's good to see your face too. Yeah. your face on the, we're not in person, but even if I was in Indy, we wouldn't be in person either. So anyway, you guys may have taken my class in Indy. I teach calligraphy and chalkboard. And today I'm going to help Leslie and Indy Maven. I'm going to teach you a little bit about holiday mail art and getting ready to send out all of our beautiful holiday mail. So if you are like me, you normally send out holiday cards, right? But if you're not, if it's not something that you normally do, totally fine. But guess what? This year, it's like extra important because we can't be with the ones that we love. So you guys know I'm from Indiana, and I recently moved from Indy. I live in Phoenix now, and sadly, I will not be able to go back for the holidays because of the unspeakable. And I think a lot of you are probably in the same boat. So being able to send out holiday cards is a great way to show our friends and family that we care, to say happy holidays with, maintaining our social distance, right? Okay, so a few things before we get into the tutorials. I want to talk to you a little bit about, what are the rules for the post office, which I know sounds enthralling, right? But it actually is really interesting because the last thing you want is to address all these beautiful envelopes and then have them come back to you or not go through the mail because you didn't do all this stuff right. So now this just applies if you are in the US. So anybody who's joining that's not in the US, it's going to be different. Going to be different for your country. So I'm going to give you like a brief overview here. Okay. If you want the full details, I have a class called Envelope Essentials. I totally forgot what it was called there for a second. An online class called Envelope Essentials, where we go through like all the nitty gritty. But basically, if you are sending an envelope that is anything smaller then let me just get the exact number for you here. Anything smaller than 11.5 inches long and 6 1/8 inches high, which is huge, right? You're probably not sending a card that big. Any kind that can take just one single stamp if it's going within the US. Okay, so this is like the standard size for holiday cards. This is a 5x7. Okay, and if I'm just putting a regular old card in here, I just need one stamp. So anywhere within the US, you just need to put the one stamp on there. So a lot of folks ask me about machinable versus non-machinable, right? So that is simply, what that means is there's this big machine at the post office that you run the mail through and it helps like sort it out. So mail that cannot go through those machines costs a little bit extra to send. So there are lots of different things that make it non-machinable. We're not going to get into all of it, but one thing I want to tell you that does not affect it is calligraphy, right? So a lot of people will say, well, if I do calligraphy, is it going to cost me more to send the envelope? No, it will not cost you any more. Where you might run into like needing a little extra postage is if you are mailing something that's super heavy. I can't imagine unless you're mailing like a chunk of like really solid wood in an envelope that it's going to be heavier than an ounce. But if it's heavier than an ounce, you're going to need some extra stamps. Another thing that might make it non-machinable is if, let me pull up an example here. This is a old one, so it's bled a little bit, but so you can see this is a wax seal. So something like this would make it non-machinable because when it went through the machine, it wouldn't be totally flat. Okay, so if that was the case, you would just need to add some extra postage to it. So if you put something in the envelope, like let's say you put a sprig of holly in there because you're like being real extra with it, which I totally endorse. That sprig of holly is going to make it not flat anymore. It's going to have a bump in it, and because it has a bump in it, that's going to require a little bit of extra postage. Now, one question I get a lot is about vintage stamps, right? Can you use vintage stamps to send a letter? And the answer is yes, you can. You want to, of course, make sure these vintage stamps have not been used before, right? And you'll notice that all these little vintage stamps have, maybe you can see here, they have numbers on them, like cents, how much they cost. That's how much they're going to be worth. So you just need to make sure that these add up to the amount of postage that you're going to need, okay? So again, that's just like a really, really brief, broad overview. I could wax poetic about postal regulations forever and ever. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I'll start a podcast just about postal regulations. But today, I just wanted to give you those basic things. One other thing that's important to note is your envelope needs to be rectangular to be able to use just one postage stamp, to be able to be machinable. If you're sending square envelopes, which, some cards are square, those are going to cost a little extra. Hate to break it to you. So that's just one thing to know. But for the most part, if you're sending a regular size card to somebody in the US, you just need one stamp. If you're sending it overseas and it's a regular size card, you're going to need 3 forever stamps or 1 international stamp. Thrilling, I know. Okay, so now let's get into the fun stuff, and that is going to be making our mail art. So let's see some raised hands here if any of you have ever done mail art before. Or raise your hand if you've done calligraphy before. Maybe that's a better question, because I recognize some of you from my classes. So raise your hand if you've done calligraphy before. Now you don't need to do calligraphy on, I see the hand raise it. You don't need to do calligraphy on your mail art, but it certainly does add a little bit of something to it, right? Makes it a little extra fancy. So we all know, we go to the mailbox, and what do we usually have in there? Bills, right? So it's always a bummer. So when you come across an envelope and it's handwritten on the front, you go, oh, for me? And then when it has calligraphy on it, you go, oh, for me? And then when it has calligraphy and mail art on it, you swoon, you need your vapors. It's just a whole thing. So that's what we're going for today. We're going for vapors, okay? So I know you're super busy. So I'm going to show you a few really, really, really easy mail art tutorials. Okay, so if you are get motion sick, maybe close your eyes for a second, because I'm going to flip the phone so that you can see my workspace here, okay? So fair warning. Okay. Alrighty. Go ahead and pump this up a little. Okay. So first things first, you gotta make sure that you have collected all of your addresses. So in terms of, let me just lift it up just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so in terms of what you're going to need for the envelope, of course, you're going to need the name, you're going to need the address, and you want the zip code to be really prominent. That's like the most important thing here, guys, is we need that zip code to be very legible and very, very prominent, because this is what's going to help the machines sort. So you don't want to have your zip code like super, super tiny on the bottom here, right? Because then you might run into a little bit of trouble. You, of course, always want to leave room for a space, or space for a stamp, rather. You can see I don't have a stamp on this because, surprise, this is a totally fake address. I know, that's a real bummer, isn't it? But so I'm not putting a stamp on there. But you always want to make sure you leave about an inch up the top so that you've got room for that stamp. You also want to make sure that you leave a little bit of space at the bottom. So you'll notice that when you get letters in the mail, they always have some markings here from the post office right here. So you want to make sure that you leave that space empty as well. Like I said, in terms of legibility, you want it to be legible, but you can still do calligraphy. You don't need to do block letters to make it readable. Okay. So now one of the first things that you might be thinking is, okay, this would be fine if I was sending one card, right? If I was just sending one letter, I would totally do mail art, but I'm sending like a bunch, so yeah, I'm not going to do that. But I got a tip for you. I got a little tip. So if you are using white envelopes, okay, the great thing about white envelopes is that they are pretty see-through, right? So one of the things that I like to do is to create a template, and I am going to show you how to do that here. Okay, so you want to get a card that will fit into your envelope. So like I said, this is a 5x7 envelope. So I've got these cards here that it's the lyrics to Home for the Holidays in the shape of my favorite state, right? So this is a 5x7 card. So I've got a 5x7 envelope here. So I just cut a piece of paper down to size, and I am going to make some guidelines here that I can slide into my envelope, so that way every time I'm doing a new envelope, I don't have to redraw my guidelines. So like I said, you want to leave about an inch at the top for a stamp there. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark that off, that right here is my stamp. So you want to do this in like a dark color ink, again, so that you can see through it. And now most addresses are going to be 3 lines, but they can be 4 lines, and they can go up even higher than that if you're sending outside the country, if the person you're sending to has kids, if it's a couple that lives together but doesn't share the same last name. There's lots of different instances where it could be more than 3 lines. So I usually like to do about 4 or 5 lines on my template. Because again, the odds of it going higher than that are pretty slim. All right, so I want to make sure I've left some room here for my first line. I'm just going to go ahead and draw that out. And then I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to do, let's see, I want 4 lines here. So I'm going to do 2 centimeters apart for mine. Just going to mark that out there. And then I'm going to draw those lines. So this little fancy thing that I'm using, this little fancy ruler, it's not really fancy. It's called a T-square. And this allows me to get my lines nice and straight, which I like. Because I don't know about you, raise your hand if you're one of those people that as you write, you start to go down like this. So it's always good to have some guidelines. Okay, so now that I have those scripted out, let me grab a white envelope here. And you might not be able to see it so well on the camera here, but when I slide this in, okay, I can now see the guidelines through it. Okay, like I said, it might not be that noticeable for you, but this is great because now instead of every time starting over with the guidelines or, you know, making an address that when I'm done, I look at it and it's kind of going cockeyed. Now I have a nice guideline and I don't have to redo it every single time. So that's a little tip for you there. All right, so now on to a couple ways to jazz up your envelopes here. All right, so one of my favorite ways that's also like incredibly easy is using washi tape. All right, so let me find my washi tape. There it is, it was hiding. So you can find holiday themed washi tape like any kind of place where paper products are sold, right? So I got these at Paper Source, which, as an aside, is one of my all-time favorite paper supply stores. I've told my husband if I die before him, I would like him to scatter my ashes at a Paper Source. I don't know how they're going to feel about that, but, you know, it's my last wish. Okay, so I call this envelope the gift wrap envelope. So let me just show you a quick example here. So with the gift wrap envelope, you can make it look like you've got, like you have a little package, like a little ribbon on your envelope here. So it just adds a little bit extra. So I've got this really pretty, like winter botanical pattern here. So I'm just gonna pull my washi tape, and you can go straight up and down. You can give it a little angle to give it a little bit of extra there. Now you can curl this around the top, which is what I'm going to do now, or you can trim it so that it is nice and even there. Now, if you want to make it look like a package, like it's, you know, double wrapped with string, you can always add a second one here. I recommend you do it at the bottom, not the top, right? So that you don't interfere with that stamp. And then using our guidelines there, we can address our envelope. So I won't go through a whole address here, but just so you can see kind of how it would lay. Okay, and so you can see we have this nice little empty space here where we can add that in and still have plenty of room for our stamp. So that, how many seconds did that add? Like 30 seconds to our addressing, and it gives it such a pretty polished look. You can't tell me that you wouldn't be super excited to see this in your mailbox, because you totally would be, right? Now you can also get, if you don't have a paper source near you, or if it's difficult to get there now, you know, with all the restrictions, you can always go to places like Michael's have this. Your local art supply stores will likely have some washi tape as well. So that's a lot of fun. So you can see like this one is nice and metallic. And you can go with you can go with different themes here too. So if you don't celebrate Christmas, you can always get some really pretty snowflakes for here. If you celebrate Hanukkah, there's lots of really fun Hanukkah washi tape with like dreidels and candles. So you can really do this to suit any theme. When Valentine's Day comes up, which I know, like, how can we even think that far ahead? But this is wonderful for that as well. Okay, so another simple thing that you can do with your mail to add a little bit of extra is to add some little botanicals around your names. So for this one, I added some holly leaves. Okay, and I'm just going to walk you through how I might do this one. Okay, so I'm going to take my template again. I'm going to slide it in. And we'll script something up. So I'm going to use, washi tape is a huge addiction. Let me tell you about how I have I'm trying to think of the word. It's like a paper towel rod, but it is just for washi tape. So Yeah, I'm right there with you. So I'm actually going to use some Crayola markers here. Crayola markers are my, I love doing Crayola markers. These are my go-to when I'm just addressing mail for like my personal mail, because they make beautiful, beautiful calligraphy. They're super easy. They come in tons of colors, and I always have them on hand. I would love to say it's because, you know, I have a daughter who has them, but no, it's me. I have all the Crayolas in the house. Okay, so these are like the regular old Crayola markers. You can also get a kind called Super Tip. So these are the markers that they like advertise as calligraphy markers, but you can do it with either of them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use this. I've got my template here so I can see my lines. We'll just do a simple one here. We're going to send this to Rudolph. He could use a card, right? Rudolph, dear, adorbs, adorbs. So now when you are doing addresses, if the person that you are sending to lives in an apartment, you can put the apartment number on the same line as the address, or you could put it on the line below. So we could do, you know, apartment number. We'll just do that here. Actually, we'll go ahead and do it. So you can do it on the line below. Okay. So you can see I've kind of abandoned my guidelines here. Because I like to make my name stand out a little bit. So I make the bottom part a little smaller. Okay, so you can see that I've done this and I'm like, oh, it's not quite even, right? Like this last line ended up being a little bit long. So that's where these fun botanicals can come in. So we did the holly on the last one. So now for this one, I'm going to do a little mistletoe, right? So to make mistletoe, you just draw kind of a long sinuous line like this. And then you want to draw rounded leaves. It's almost like little teardrops. Okay, and then we can do a little stem coming out with a couple different leaves on it. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and fill those in. And we're not going for perfection here. One of the reasons I love doing botanicals is like nature is not perfect, right? So we definitely wouldn't want this to be perfect. Okay, so now that's kind of evened that out a little bit. I like it, but I want a little bit more up here. I want to kind of balance it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do another one right around his name here. These nice little rounded mistletoe leaves. Oh, super cute. Okay, so now I'm going to get my red marker. I'm going to add some berries in there. Again, we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for a way to spice it up a little bit. All right, so that's a really simple botanical that you can add. You can also do, like I said, these little holly leaves. So for these, it's just 3 little dots. And then the little leaves on the side here, let me just show you how to make those. So to make a holly leaf, you're going to do almost like a cursive A, right? So it's just boop, boop, like a tent. And then you're going to do 2 little C's. And then another tent. And you can fill it in or you can draw a line through it. Now the thing about drawing up a holly leaf is they almost always come in pairs, right? So you're going to want to add another one there. And I'll add our berries. Okay, so we got a question. How long or how much practice did it take you to get confident with your lettering? That is a great question. And the answer is a lot. So I actually, I still feel like I'm learning new stuff with it every day. It's just one of those things that requires a lot of practice. So I would say if you're practicing like an hour or so a week, which I think is realistic in this time of COVID and no childcare, raise your hand if you're in that boat. It's a very fun boat to be in, I know. If you're able to get in an hour or two a week for yourself, you're gonna see that you'll progress pretty quickly. You'll be able to do calligraphy faster than you expect. So when I am teaching a class, I get folks that come in and they say, there's no way I can do this. I can't do calligraphy and my handwriting is terrible. And by the end of the 2 hours, I'm not saying that they're going to quit their jobs and become a calligrapher, but they can do legit pretty calligraphy. So it doesn't take a lot to just, make something passable. But if you want to make something that really suits, starts to fit your style and really reflects you and makes you feel really comfortable with it, it just takes a lot of practice. Do I hand letter all return addresses or do I recommend a sticker? So that depends on how many you're going to be doing. That's totally a personal choice. Because I'm very bougie, and I don't have an example here, I actually have like a stamp made up of my address so that I can stamp it on. And sometimes I also get the envelopes printed with my return address if I'm going to be sending out a lot. I had a second daughter in September, and I knew I'd be sending out a lot of announcements, so I just had our address printed. But other times, if I'm sending, like invites to a birthday party, I will just handwrite them. So that actually leads me to another tip. So if you were to listen to the post office website, they say you have to do the return address on the front, right? I literally never do. Okay. I always put my return address on the back flap, and I've never had a problem with it not coming back to me if, something happens. So you have those options. Okay. So I'm going to show you one more. I know we're running, it's almost 5:30. So if you guys have to pop off, this video will be saved so you can view it later. But this is something, if you've got kids, I think you're really going to like. Okay, so raise your hand if you have like 10,000 unfinished coloring books in your house, right? I do. I have a ton. Like I said, I have an infant, a newborn, but I also have a 3-year-old. So we get very, very excited about coloring for very short bursts. So we've got lots of, half-colored, we got lots of half-colored coloring books. So now this is something that you can actually do with your kids. So if you want to get your kids involved in the sending out holiday mail process, which is honestly really going to be really nice, especially this year if they haven't had a chance to see grandma and grandpa for a long time. This is a way that they can help without, if they can't, address the envelopes. Okay. So what you'll do is you will find a small image that you can color. So I went ahead and colored this one. I know I should have let my daughter do it, but, I didn't. So mom of the year right here, right? But especially if you look at, and a lot of these coloring books, they have things that are, like here's an example. Like find what's different, which legit, this one took me a long time to figure out what was different. So, my brain's doing great in quarantine, but these are usually the right size. Okay. They're usually much smaller because obviously I can't fit that adorable little reindeer on here. So have your kid or you can, relax and color a little bit and just cut it out. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can see that I didn't cut all the way along here. And then you can add this to your envelope. So I've got some Mod Podge here and a paintbrush. All right. So, if you don't have Mod Podge laying around, you can just use a glue stick. But the reason I recommend the Mod Podge is that you can, you use it on top of you use it on top of the picture as well to seal it in so that it doesn't end up peeling off in the process of mailing. Because again, this is going to go through some stuff on the way to where it's going. So if you can add a little bit more protection by sealing it on, I totally recommend that. And Mod Podge is very cheap. You can get it at Michael's. If you are not leaving the house, which good for you, you can totally order it online as well. So then you just do like a thin layer on top. So you can see this is really quick to do. And right now it looks like really milky and thick, but it will dry clear, which is great. And this is one way that your kids can get involved in the whole process. All right, so now we've got that on, and then I can go ahead and address it over here. So I would just address it on this side. Okay, and fill out the address there. Runs out to buy coloring books and Mod Podge, right? It's like so much fun, and and again, all of these tutorials are things that, I'm showing them how you can do it for holiday, but you can do this for any time. If you're sending somebody a birthday card, or if you're sending them, an anniversary card, or just an I'm thinking of you card, this is a great way to spice it up. All right. So now that I've shown you this, I'm going to do a tiny bit, a small bit of shameless self-promotion here, guys, okay? So one thing I do want to share with you is if you enjoyed this and you think mail art could be something that you really enjoy, I do have a new mail art class, online class available right now. It's called Merry Mail Art, where we do all sorts of different holiday mail art tutorials. So this one is called Vintage North Pole. We've got the sneaky reindeer here, and look, he's on the back too. I mean, adorable. We've got, we've got cozy flannel, all right. Winter Wonderland, so if you look closely, that's glitter. Yes, girl, it's glitter. It's glitter, okay? So that's one of the tutorials. Then we have the hot foil botanical. Look how pretty. And then we have our modern menorah. So we've got lots of different, it's 6 different mail art tutorials that you can do. And that class is now available on my website. And actually today is my Cyber Monday deal, and you can get 30% off all the online classes, including that one. Just use the code CyberMonday30. All right. And lastly, if you are interested in learning how to do calligraphy with Crayola markers, Wednesday, I am having a live virtual Crayola calligraphy class. It's $20 for the class. All you need are some Crayola markers. Don't need anything fancy, and you will learn how to do calligraphy like this with just Crayola markers. So I'm going to go ahead and send you now to my Instagram. If you don't follow me yet, please head on over there. If you enjoyed this tutorial, you can find lots of others like it over at Hoopla Letters. And I want to say a big thank you to Indy Maven for inviting me here today to share a little bit of my love for mail art and for the holidays. I so wish we could be all together in person and celebrating, but this is a great way. Their Winterize program is a great way for all of us to connect and be together during this time. So again, I want to thank you all so much for joining, and have a lovely holiday season. And if you end up doing any of this mail art, girl, I want to see it. I want you to share it. Go ahead and post it. Tag at Hoopla Letters, tag at Indy Maven. Show us your beautiful work. Just make sure to obscure the address so your friends and family don't get creepers. All right? Okay, everybody, have a lovely night. Have a lovely holiday. And happy scripting.